Well, here we are again. And the question is, what's it all about? Here we are at day 4. Day 4, and we're only at day 4, and the tough questions come. What we have to do, what we're expected to do. What we're expected to understand is growing. Why did God accept Abel's offering, but he rejected Cain's? Was it the offering itself? Was God being selective for reasons never explained? Was Cain doomed before he ever stepped forward? Or is something happening here that cuts far deeper than the surface of the story? Because if you understand this moment, you'll understand worship. But if you misunderstand this moment, you'll misunderstand worship. And that is critically important, as you will see in a moment. Because if you misunderstand worship, you'll misunderstand your relationship with God. This isn't just an old story about two brothers standing in a field with two gifts. This is a revelation about what God receives, what he refuses, and what your life is saying every time you come before him. This text is not merely ancient. It is painfully current. Because people still bring God things while holding themselves back. People still offer activity without surrender. People still try to hand God a gesture while protecting their pride, their anger, and their self-rule. So tell me in the comments, what do you think made the difference between Cain and Abel? We're continuing in chronological order through the early story of the Bible. Creation has happened. The world has been spoken into beauty and order. Humanity has been made in the image of God. Then, sin entered. Trust collapses. Shalom is fractured. Alienation begins to spread in every direction between humanity and God, between man and woman, between human beings and the ground itself. And now in Genesis 4, that fracture moves into worship. It moves into family. It moves into violence. This chapter shows us what life was like east of Eden and what that life starts to look like. This is what happens when fallen people try to live, work, worship, and relate in a world no longer untouched by rebellion. So when we arrive at Cain and Abel, we're not looking at an isolated event. We're watching the early anatomy of the human heart unfold. Hello to all watching live and on playback. And the first place that anatomy gets exposed is worship. It's in worship. Listen to the next text carefully. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. And that's the ESV. And in the Complete Jewish Study Bible, in the course of time, Cain brought an offering to Adonai from the produce of the soil. Then Abel. This is Abel. And Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. CJSB goes this way. Hevel too brought from the firstborn of his sheep, including their fat. So right away, the wording slows you down. The text gives more detail about Abel's offering than Cain's. And this isn't random. Cain brought an offering. Abel brought the firstborn. Cain brought something, but Abel, he brought the fat portions. Cain is described generally and Abel is described specifically. And in Bible narrative, those kinds of details matter. Little things don't mean a lot, they mean everything. The text is signaling that we should not read these two offerings as spiritually equivalent. Something is already being revealed before God ever responds. Now let's be careful here. The issue isn't that God likes animals and dislikes crops. This isn't a meatitarian versus a vegetarian deal here. That would be a shallow reading. Israel would later bring grain offerings that God explicitly commanded and received. So this isn't produce versus livestock. This is not occupational bias, preferring shepherds over farmers. Hebrews 11:4 helps us read this rightly. It says, "By faith, Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain." Oh, there's the word. By faith. By faith. That's a big deal. That's a future changing word. There's the center of gravity. By faith. The issue is not merely what was placed on the altar. The issue is the heart from which it came. Abel's offering is marked by faith. Cain's is not described that way. Abel brings firstborn and fat portions. The language of priority, cost, honor, and weight. Cain simply brings an offering. The contrast is restrained, but it is unmistakable. One appears to bring with trusting reverence, the other appears to bring with less than that. Worship is never just about the external object, it is about what the object reveals. Then God responds. And his response is one of the most important parts of the entire passage. The Lord has regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. Notice the order: Abel and then his offering, Cain and then his offering, the man, then the gift, the worshiper, then the worship, and that matters deeply. God isn't evaluating ritual in isolation. He sees the person in the offering. He sees the heart through the act. He sees whether the outward gift reflects inward trust, surrender, and alignment. That's why worship can never be reduced to visible religious motion. It cannot be about the show. You can do all the right things, looking like all the right things. You can absolutely do all the right looking things and still be spiritually out of line. You can sing the songs and resist the God you sing to. You can speak Bible language and remain inwardly unyielded. You can serve publicly and still privately you rebel. And that is where this text gets very uncomfortable, because it will not let us hide behind our religious activity. It exposes us. And that is a scary, scary thing. Some people think worship is mainly about attendance. Some think it's mainly about the music. Some think it's mainly about giving, posting, volunteering. Maybe it's, they think it's about saying the right words. You think? You think that could be it? Saying the right words. We're really good at that. But Genesis 4 tells us something quite sobering. You can bring something to God and still not actually bring yourself. You can place an offering on the altar while keeping your heart in your own hand. God isn't deceived by polished religious displays, polished religious presentation. He is not impressed by outward effort detached from inward surrender. He is after truth in the inward being. He is after a life that says, you are first. That is why Abel's offering is so important. It appears to say, God gets the first and the best from me, not the leftover, not the casual, not the convenient, the first, the weighty, the costly, the honoring, and that is still the dividing line today. Now, watch Cain. The rejection doesn't lead him into brokenness, it leads him into anger. His face falls. The moment exposes not only his worship, but his heart posture, and God speaks to him. This is mercy in motion. The Lord asks him, "Why are you angry?" Then God warns him. Sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. In the Complete Jewish Study Bible, it says, sin is crouching at the door. It wants you, but you can rule over it. And that image is vivid. Sin isn't pictured as a harmless mistake floating by. It is pictured like a predator at the threshold, waiting, crouching low, ready to spring. It wants Cain. It seeks mastery. It seeks possession. And yet God's warning also means Cain is not helpless, and neither are we. Cain is being confronted before he collapses. And he is being warned before the violence erupts, before he is being given a moment to master what is trying to master him. And that warning is grace. That warning is mercy. That warning is a doorway back. Don't miss the tenderness of that moment. God doesn't instantly cast Cain away. He confronts him. He addresses him. He warns him. He gives him language, clarity, and opportunity. That means Cain's story is not a first story of rejection. It is a first story of exposure met by mercy. God doesn't say, "You failed. Now be silent." God says, in effect, look at what's rising in you. Deal with it right now before it devours you. How many lives would be different if people listened at that moment? How many marriages would be saved and be so wonderful? How many ministries? How many friendships? How many homes? How many churches? How many souls? Because most destruction doesn't begin with the knife in the hand. It begins with something crouching at the door of your heart. It begins with jealousy not surrendered, anger not examined, wounded pride not brought under God's authority, resentment fed in the dark until it becomes your identity. Cain is being warned at the level of the heart before the hand ever moves. And that is still still how God deals with us. But Cain doesn't humble himself. He doesn't repent. He doesn't bring his anger under the authority of God. Instead, he carries it, he nurses it, he protects it, he lets it grow teeth. And eventually what is inward becomes outward. What was crouching at the door gets all the way in, and Cain rises up and he kills his own brother. That's the progression. Disordered worship, exposed heart, rejected warning, protected anger, outward destruction. That is not only Cain's problem, that is the human pattern when the heart will not bow, where the life begins to break when the heart won't bow and surrender and acknowledge. Life begins to break, and usually others bleed for it. That's why this passage isn't merely about theology. It is about life and death. It is about whether what is wrong in us gets ruled under God, or whether it eventually rules us. Yes, I will absolutely say a prayer for your daughter and your husband. The devil is trying to destroy their marriage. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. It's a pleasure to have all of the new faces and names. I absolutely will. If you need to contact me about that, truewordfaithforlife.com, truewordfaithforlife.com, and all you have to do is simply go to contact or click on the little banner. You leave me a voice message. On the other way you can do it is if you want to type it out, is under contact up at the top. I promise you I'll get back with you. Look, it's about whether what is wrong in us gets ruled under God or whether it eventually rules us. How about you? Have you been in that place? Now step back and remember who's writing this. Moses or Moshe is writing to Israel, a covenant people being formed by God after bondage, a people who must learn covenant life. Look, it can't be faked. They're learning that worship isn't magic, sacrifice isn't manipulation, ritual is not a substitute for obedience. The altar was never meant to hide a divided heart. You cannot separate what is on the altar from what is on the heart. So Genesis 4 it isn't merely preserving an ancient tragedy for us to read. It is teaching covenant people a covenant truth. If Israel's going to belong to Adonai, then offering and obedience must walk together. Trust and worship must walk together. What is brought before God must match the life yielded to God. In Hebraic thought, life isn't divided into little compartments where the religious act stands alone untouched by the inner person. No, the heart, the will, the actions, the worship, they are all bound together. What you love shapes what you bring. What you trust shapes how you approach God. What you refuse to surrender eventually reveals itself. And that is why the story of Cain and Abel cuts so deeply. It won't let us pretend that God only wants a visible token while leaving the inner life unexamined. So let's bring it into our own lives honestly. What are you offering God? What are you offering God right now? Your time? Your service, your church attendance, your words, your leadership, your giving, your study, your image, and on the outside it may look completely fine. Others may even admire it. But God sees more than appearances. It is what you are bringing, flowing from faith, surrender, and alignment. Is it? Is that what you're bringing? Is what you're bringing to God, your worship, your service, all of these things, is it flowing from faith and surrender and alignment? Or Is it flowing from habit, convenience, fear, and self-protection? Are you giving God firstness? Or are you giving Him only what remains of your day, what remains after your appetites, your ambitions, your anxieties have already taken the first and the best? That is why this show is normally on at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm re-recording it because of a technical issue on the part of YouTube. Normally we're at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and then Sundays, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we go over the whole thing. So whether you're listening live or on playback, that's when we do it. I'd encourage you to like and subscribe and share with people who need this. They need it. It isn't about me. It isn't about me. They need this. Are you giving God what remains of the things you feel like, oh, I have to do this first. I'll get to this, but I first have to do this. I'm going to ask a tough question. What about your anxieties? Do your anxieties steal away the first and the best? Are you offering God a life, your life, yielded fully to Him? Or are you offering Him only carefully measured portions while keeping the core of yourself untouched? And that is the question underneath Cain and Abel. Not merely what am I bringing, but who am I while I bring it? And this is where the message gets personal. Some people are trying to stay religious while remaining inwardly angry. Some are deeply wounded and they refuse to let God touch and heal the wound. Some are serving hard, speaking loudly, showing up publicly, and still resisting the very surrender God is asking of them. Some are bringing God their effort, but not their trust. They are bringing their routine, but not their repentance, their activity, but not their first love. And the Lord isn't after your polished exterior. He isn't after your spiritually well-managed life image. He is after your true heart. He is after your truth. He is after the place in you that has been hiding behind motion, hiding behind competence, hiding behind public faithfulness while inwardly resisting authority. And here is the mercy of God. He still warns before the door is broken down. He still speaks before destruction spills out. He still confronts so that we can turn back to Him. So here is for you your challenge and choice for day 4. You can keep bringing God what costs a little and means much less. You can keep offering routine without surrender. You can keep managing appearances while the heart remains out of alignment. You can keep protecting pride, resentment, jealousy, and self-rule. That path always ends badly. Or you can bring Him your honest trust. You can bring Him your firstness. You can bring Him the surrendered heart that says, Lord, not just my gift, take me. One path keeps religion on the surface. The other turns your whole life into worship. How would that look? One path protects self, the other yields to God. How would that look? One path keeps sin crouching near the door, but the other closes the door by bringing everything into light. Everything into the light. Choose the kind of offering God actually receives from you. Choose alignment over appearance. Choose surrender over performance. Choose faith over religious motion. Choose to let God examine not just what's in your hand, but what is ruling your heart. If you want to go deeper, use the companion blog posts and the study guides on truewordfaithforlife.com. Under blog, you'll see them all there. It's free. Everything there is free. I work very hard on it. I want to make it worthwhile to you. Listen, they'll help you revisit the text. They'll help you follow the larger context. And they'll help you keep growing beyond the episode. If I could ask, share this episode with a friend. The link here, share it with a friend. Post it on your social media so more people can walk the Bible with us. Listen, God, He isn't after your polished religion. He is not after managed appearances. He's not even after what looks right, while the heart stays untouched. He is after faith. He is after surrender. He is after the kind of heart that says, Lord, you are first. So don't bring Him your leftovers. Don't bring Him gestures. Don't bring Him a version of worship that costs you nothing. Bring Him your trust. Bring Him your first and your best. Bring Him the heart that finally says, yes. Join me tomorrow, live at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, fully engaged, or catch it on playback on True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn, YouTube and Rumble channels. This has been True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. For more teachings, visit truewordfaithforlife.com. Until next time, Shalom B'Shem Yeshua. Shalom Alaikum.